Hi class, we could not get to this session any faster. Today we're going to focus on planning health promotion and disease prevention programs. What a crazy week last week to cover violence and injury prevention, gun control topics. Just to overview where we've been together this term, we started out with the general historical overview of social and behavioral science as they relate to public health in general and the importance in as a branch of science. We've looked at social determinants of health and specific topics related to disease, preventable causes of mortality, injury, disability. We've looked at special populations. We've looked at developmental ages across the life course. And this last stretch of the term is the most important. It is how we move forward to empower the vulnerable populations, communities that we aim to improve their health and eliminate the disparities that continue to plague them. So we are going to really pull up our sleeves and look at how we go about accomplishing this work. So there are a number of models and frameworks to follow. I know originally in the agenda I was going to have you look at Lawrence Green's chapter 4 in his Community and Population Health online textbook. However, there's just been a little modification, which is fine. Now the instructor resources are only available, not the actual text and reading of that chapter. But there are many tools that I'm going to be posting in the supplemental section on Desire to Learn in Brightspace. And those include the Healthy People 2020 Map It, which is mobilization, assessment, planning, implementation, and tracking. The Precede Proceed is a landmark framework for diagnosing a health problem and setting up a plan for change, as well as the Precede part of that is the alignment of evaluation measures. The MAP is mobilizing action through planned partnership model. The CDC has the MATCH model, which is mobilizing action through community health model. So as I said, there's a vast amount of examples, case studies, and through some of the resources that I link to, you'll be able to continue to research and follow along and find more examples. We're going to get to in a minute, but all of these different models share certain elements, and these are just the real core elements that are common across all of these frameworks. And one is that community is at the core, that we use community participatory research and community mobilization to take action, to give voice to those vulnerable populations that do not know how to organize and make changes and address the social structures that are really having negative impacts on their health. So the other elements are the stages or the steps in the process, and all of them involve quantification of the problem, whether it's secondary data, primary data. It's always advisable to use both so that you can assess the situation, the contextual factors that are fueling the situation and perpetuating the problem. The next stage is planning or coming up with a design or blueprint of how to take action to improve the problem. There's also going to be an articulation of what to do to implement and carry out a plan. And then every model will involve an evaluation, a measurement of the steps taken and the changes that result as a result of those actions that have been taken. So there will be instruments, there'll be measures, there'll be tracking mechanisms, surveillance, etc. So as I mentioned, we're going to look at one particular framework or model in today's session, and that is the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation County Health Rankings and Roadmap. They have an action center, and I really think their tools have just really evolved, and they have great examples. We're going to go over just the basic structure of how they have created a very well-known, recognized approach to use data-informed action. So why does it matter? Let's begin there. The County Health Rankings Logic Model is it works to build a culture of health county by county. So the County Health Rankings originally started with just the assembly of key important data points for each of the 3,000 plus counties that exist in the United States. And the standardization of this data allows for comparisons. And the whole idea driving the rankings is that we're going to create population-based data. We're going to collect it. We're going to rank the counties from those that are really high performing, healthy, down to the lowest. And then when we can really identify the clusters of the lowest counties across the indicators, we can garner media attention, we can use community leaders to report and actually start getting behind and really championing the changes that are needed to build community effort, mobilization, engagement. We can use strategies that are evidence-based and use programs that have been demonstrated to have a positive impact in communities. We're going to look at policies that have addressed loopholes and have changed disparities and decreased disparities in communities, and the ultimate goal will be to improve the health on a county level, on a population level, on a state. All right, on this figure, this is so important from the County Health Rankings collaboration partnership. This figure really is the crux of public health. It gives me my passion for what I do as a behavioral scientist. When you look at this figure, you're going to notice in the green boxes on top the health outcomes, and the green boxes are the indicators of today's health. It tells us how long people are living and whether or not people die too early from what's expected. And it also tells us about the quality of life and how people feel when they're living. And then the second part of this figure is the health factors, the blue boxes. And it tells us about tomorrow's health. It tells us about all different behaviors and clinical indicators, how well our system is equipped to deal and handle health problems. We're going to come back to this, I promise. Now, health equity is an important factor in the Robert Wood Johnson County Health Rankings project, and that in order to create health equity, this culture of health must be established county by county. How do you create a culture of health? Everyone in a community needs to have an equal opportunity to enjoy good health, and that means health equity. It is a shared commitment to identify and address gaps in opportunity that tend to disproportionately and negatively affect certain populations. And it's a basic principle for all people in a community. So here's one example: housing. Access to affordable housing is key to health. And generations ago, during Franklin Roosevelt's New Deal, the federal government started subsidizing housing. But they funded programs that allowed whites to move into suburbs, while options for Black people were public housing apartments in the same city. And what happened is that you had a concentration of poverty in these urban inner city public housing centers versus the suburbs. So it's important, one, that we understand the data, and the county health rankings data is organized by two domains. We've got, like I've mentioned, the health outcomes, which is representative of today's health, and we have health factors, which represents tomorrow's health. And please visit thecountyhealthrankings.org. Visit your community, pull down your county, and you're going to come to something like this. So this is going to be the example that Robert Wood Johnson showcases is in Wisconsin, Madison, because the University of Wisconsin is the leader of the county health rankings, so they showcase theirs. So they're going to pick Dane County, Wisconsin, and they're going to find out how healthy it is with the green maps and the blue maps for health outcomes and health factors respectively. And you're going to notice how they rank out of the 72 counties, how Dane ranks. And then from there, you can go to your county snapshot, and they're going to show 35 different measures. And here's just a screenshot, but the actual snapshot will show all 35. And it'll show you how it is within the state, and you can also look at the measures on the left-hand side. You can look at the ranks on the right-hand side. There's two different rankings for outcomes and factors. And they give you can read about the statistics, and they use a 95% confidence interval, meaning that they're 95% sure that the actual number for your county is in the given range. And what's so great about this is that it has been collected now for sequential years, and they can trend the data. And so if it is available, you can view a detailed graph of the trend data by clicking the graph icons. So there's color-coded graphs right in the middle between the county and the error margin. And you can see whether or not the trend is increasing, decreasing, or staying the same over time. And red graph icons indicate the county is getting worse for a particular measure. Yellow is that it is staying the same, and green is it's improving. So for adult obesity in Dane County, the green is indicative of the state of Wisconsin. The red is of the United States. So Wisconsin is above their 3-year average for obesity rates is above the national average, and in Dane County it's actually less than both. You can also explore the button Show Areas to Explore, and this highlights potential challenges a community may want to examine more closely. So if you turn that feature on, orange boxes highlighting areas to explore based on your health factor measures will appear. And you can go to like physical inactivity, and it will show areas that have assets and strengths in your community, and you can look at the relative influence of each measure on the overall health outcomes. So you can read the very sophisticated statistical approaches and analytic methods that the team from the County Health Rankings and Population Institute of the University of Wisconsin-Madison used in their ranking methodology. And this, how do you use these snapshots? You can use these and begin to understand how communities have specifically used one health factor or outcome to strategize and implement a plan to take action. And this is where you can explore your data, how you use it, you can dig deeper, you can measure progress, and so there's a separate section to understanding progress and how data and change actually take time. And so setting reasonable expectations in your strategic plans is imperative. So the whole purpose of understanding surveillance data is to understand health gaps, where they exist, and why they matter. It gives everyone a fair chance to be healthy, and it doesn't mean offering the same resources to everybody. It really is about understanding where you can strategically target limited resources that are especially important for vulnerable populations that can really enhance their overall good health and bring them up to speed. So in this final part, Robert Wood Johnson's whole agenda is to move forward with action. And so in their action section, if you visit this page directly, where the Action Center, each one of these areas and circles can be clicked on, and you can understand what this circle, what the element represents. What do educators, businesses, philanthropy and investors, nonprofits, community developers, government, healthcare, the role each person plays in the overall cycle of assessing, focusing on what's important or prioritizing, choosing and selecting policies and programs that have a good fit given the contextual and situational profile of what's going on or snapshot, acting on what's important, and then evaluating. So the how becomes very, very important, and it is the foundation of individual community roadmaps. Everybody in a community must get involved in some capacity. You cannot have outside university or public health government groups taking on and coming up with their own agenda in isolation, thinking that it's going to be sustained and integrated very well in a community. We must move from data to evidence-informed action. It's not evidence-driven, it's evidence-informed. And this subtle change has occurred over the past few years because we were using data-driven and just thinking we could answer all the questions by looking at like county health rankings data, separate from input from community residents themselves. And that is very fundamentally flawed, that we must get insights from community members because that is more important than just surveillance data alone. And then from that, we can focus across the health factors, including social and economic factors. Then finally, the red box, and we're going to get more into this in our next session on Wednesday about policies, systems, and these very broad environmental and macro level influences and opportunities for change. So from working together to evaluating your efforts, the County Health Rankings Action Center gives you so many tools, guidance, examples. They will show you case studies of communities that have collectively come together and really changed the landscape of their community in terms of health, their physical environment, their space, And because they use the same action cycle that Robert Wood Johnson lays forward, they have been able to recognize people that have taken a very comprehensive approach in this systematic fashion, and they're giving out Culture of Health prizes. And it really highlights communities that have defined health in the very broadest sense of what health means, that these communities have committed to sustainable system changes, policy level changes that will have an influence and leave a legacy in the long term. They celebrate communities that cultivate a shared and deeply held belief in the importance of equal opportunities for health or health equity. They recognize communities that harness the collective power of leaders, partners, community residents, and members. They also give prizes to communities that secure and make the most of the resources that they have available and who are seeking to leverage additional resources. And they also recognize those communities that measure and share their progress and results. So the last winners from the last wave of the prize range from Santa Cruz County, California, Pueblo, New Mexico, Minneapolis, Wisconsin, a tribal group, Michigan, the Menominee Nation in Wisconsin, Kansas City, North Carolina, South Carolina, New Orleans, Texas. We've got New York, Connecticut, Massachusetts had 4 prize winners. So please visit the website and learn more about why those communities are recognized in terms of building and fostering a culture of health. So one example here is from the Menominee Nation, and doctors and teachers aren't asking their patients, what's wrong with you? Instead, they say, what happened to you? And this is the group out of Wisconsin. They improve by reclaiming the traditional culture and practices of the Menominee Nation and using trauma-specific interventions that foster healing from losses that have occurred through history. It's actually looking at the untreated, unrecognized losses that have been accumulating from the time that the settlers came into this area. And so one particular phrase that they highlight is trauma-informed care doesn't take a lot of planning. It doesn't take extra time. It actually is about getting to know your kids. In the Kansas City, Missouri prize-winning organization, they were recognized from changing the form of their community by mobilizing and using policies. And change in the form of community mobilization and policy development comes when the folks who are actually harmed by the issues are engaged and empowered to have a voice. And this is the Aim for Peace effort, and they engage in a new type of health worker who actually hits the streets to interrupt street violence, mentor high-risk individuals, and foster peace. And it is a program out of the city's health department. And so I want you to read more about this prize-winning organization. So going back, if you look at that red box again, the policies and programs, this is the focus of today's session, shows us that we all, every single one of us, from public health professionals, government, community residents, nonprofits, businesses, healthcare, we all have a stake in creating a healthier community and fostering a culture of health and health equity. So if you want to learn about what works for health, Robert Wood Johnson has that as well. Look for the web pages that outline effective programs and policies, and in their section, what works for health, because evidence matters. Evidence, if we can really showcase how efforts have been funded and supported, we can make smarter investments, which will inform decisions and inform innovation in the future. And each of the strategies that are showcased in this section gives a rating of evidence and whether or not the science supports that it truly uses a design that shows that the people participating have had a greater impact and improvement in health compared to control groups, etc. And the explanation of how that is determined is fully included in the resources available. So when you're choosing strategies, you want to weigh the evidence of effectiveness. You also want to give consideration to how the strategies will fit within a community's willingness and readiness to engage and address the problem, and whether or not that problem is viewed as a priority by the residents. If you want to, if the National Cancer Institute funds a program, but your residents think violence is far more important than cancer, guess what? Your cancer prevention agenda is going to fall flat and fall short of its goals until you address the burning issue of violence. You cannot ignore what residents feel are a priority. You also have to take into consideration the capacity of a community and not adopting strategies that are beyond the assets and resources of what a community has. It's impossible to build something that is only going to remain a plan. It's going to be only a blueprint that never comes to fruition because you don't have the resources necessary to make it come true. So policies and programs that work, you're constantly being encouraged to look at programs where communities have been successful. There are countless examples in Philadelphia, Baltimore, every corner of the US, from rural to Native American to the cornfields of Iowa. Here's an example in Clinton County, Iowa, from the county health rankings that you can read about. They have a nurse-family partnership that pairs nurses with new mothers so that it's more than just coming in and getting your postnatal checkups. It's looking at mothers and how they're doing with postpartum depression, bonding, latching, breastfeeding, a whole array. It's spending time to understand how a new mother is faring. It is a stressful transition in life that can have, real serious challenges, which may translate into impacts that might, have repercussions throughout an infant's life as they grow up if mom's not taken care of or those needs aren't met. So I'm going to include far more links to effective program resources. The Office of Health Promotion of the federal government has an incredible database of evidence-based programs that you can read about. Then there are separate links for adolescent health effective programs, cancer, etc. And so many different databases for program strategies, interventions that have worked. And so I just showcased Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, but really the whole point of this session is to say we must take action. It's not just understanding and collecting data. We must do something with it. And the county health rankings approach helps us see how where we live, learn, work, and play actually has an influence on how healthy we are and how long we live. And that where we live really matters to our health. So the rankings can serve as an annual checkup of the health of our county and where we live. Look at your own and look at the places that are doing very well and where there seems to be communities that are moving and regressing or maybe declining, where we can do a lot of work. Everybody can address things and identify where we can improve. So health is so much more than healthcare. Health factors contribute to health, from our own individual to our community levels of influence to our policy levels of influence. We're in this together. It takes a collaborative effort, a culture of health and equity to improve the health of a community. So data and practical help and tools are out there, but you have to research. You have to take time to get to work and find those. So please explore the resources, complete the readings, and get excited about helping others come together to take action to improve the health of where they live and work.